broadcast while we're going through the background motions. Thanks, Ula Manju. Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Palapa Giri Bharatari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Panachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharatari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Panachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharatari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Panachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kishore Kishori ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Marani ki jai, Gonitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading from Canto 10, Chapter 77, Text 25, 26 and 27, and 25 we'll be chanting together. Iti bruvane govinde shobarat pratyupasthita vasudevam ivaniya krishnam chedamuvachasa iti bruvane govinde shobarati pratyupasthita vasudevam ivaniya krishnam chedamuvachasa iti bruvane govinde shobarat pratyupasthita vasudevam ivaniya krishnam chedamuvachasa. Please chant. Iti bruvane govinde shobarati pratyupasthita vasudevam ivaniya krishna chedamuvachasa iti bruvane govinde shobarati pratyupasthita vasudevam ivaniya krishnam chedamuvachasa. Thank you very much. And the word for word, iti, thus. Bruvane, saying. Govinde, Lord Krishna. Shobarat, the master of Shobha, salva. Pratyupasthitam, came forward. Vasudevam, Vasudeva, Lord Krishna's father. Eva, as if. Aniya, leading. Krishnam, to Lord Krishna. Cha, and. Idam, this. Uvacha, said. Saha, he. And the translation for text 25. After Govinda spoke these words, the master of Sherpa again appeared, apparently leading Vasudev before the Lord. Shalva then spoke as follows. And this is text 26, where we hear what Shalva says. Esha te janita tato yat artam iha jivasi vat hisye vikshatas mum ishasche pahi palisha. And this is what Shalva says to Lord Krishna in text 26. Shalva said, "Here is your dear father who begot you and for whose sake you are living in this world. I shall now kill him before your very eyes. Save him if you can, weakling." And text 27. Evam nirpatsya mayavi kadgenana kadundube Utkritya Shira Adaya Kastam Shobam Samivishat. And the translation for text 27. After he had mocked the Lord in this way, the magician Shalva appeared to cut off Vasudev's head with his sword. Taking the head with him, he entered the Sherpa vehicle, which was hovering in the sky. No purport, at least BBT purport for the 3 verses. Although there is a purport for text 26, and I'll come to that in a minute from Srila Vishwanath. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragutam Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitam Cha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radha Vrindavan Ishvari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Tarubhyas Chakripa Sindhubhya Vachapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha Panchakalpa Tarubhyas Chakripa Sindhubhya Vachapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Ram Padaswami Iti Namine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, text 26 that I mentioned, there is a commentary from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and I'm just going to read that text. Shalva said, "Here is your dear father who begot you, and for whose sake you are living in this world. I shall now kill him before your very eyes. Save him if you can, weakling." So that commentary by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is as follows. So these are Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's words. Shalva said, "Right before your eyes, I will kill your father who gave you birth." Close quote. So that's the commentary, one sentence, and Shalva's statement to Lord Krishna. So one can consider for a moment the interrelationship between Lord Krishna and Vasudev, his father. There's a description given which gives great insight into that relationship. And I'm going to read, so just here kindly. This is coming from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And since Shalva is referencing that it was Vasudev who gave birth, who begot Lord Krishna, that's the word he uses, and for whose sake you are now living in this world, I thought it's actually very good to examine this particular relationship between Krishna and Vasudev so that we can actually evaluate what Shalva has to say. So here's reading from Krishna book. So this is the moment when Lord Krishna appears to Vasudeva and Devaki. Vasudev saw that wonderful child born as a baby with 4 hands, including conch shell, club, disc, and lotus flower, decorated with the mark of Srivatsa, wearing the jeweled necklace of Kaustubha stone, dressed in yellow silk, appearing dazzling like a bright blackish cloud, wearing a helmet bedecked with a Vaidurya stone, valuable bracelets, earrings, and similar other ornaments all over his body, and beautified by an abundance of hair on his head. Due to the extraordinary features of the child, Vasudev was struck with wonder. How could a newly born child be so decorated? Vasudev could therefore understand that Lord Krishna had now appeared, and he became overjoyed by the occasion. Vasudev very humbly wondered that although he was an ordinary living entity, conditioned by material nature, and was externally imprisoned by Kamsa, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, Krishna, Vishnu or Krishna, had appeared as a child in that very prison cell, although how it's written is in his home, exactly in his original position. No earthly child is born with 4 hands, decorated with ornaments and nice clothing, fully equipped with all the signs of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Over and over, Vasudev glanced at the child, and he considered how to celebrate this auspicious moment. So we're getting a little bit of insight into how Vasudev viewed Lord Krishna when Lord Krishna appeared in this perfectly dressed, perfectly ornamented, with 4 arms as a baby, and how he's actually viewing and he's understanding this is Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's completely struck with wonder, and he keeps looking and looking at the child because it's so extraordinary to him. So we're looking at this because we're trying to understand a little bit of how Vasudev and Krishna have their interrelationship. So, so in considering the notion of birth, Krishna categorizes birth, because this is what I keep saying Shobha because of his airship, Shalva, King Shalva. He is saying that Vasudev begot Krishna. So the notion of birth, it's actually, Krishna categorizes it along with various other qualities that belong to living beings. So birth is actually a quality. So this is how Krishna puts it, and this is from Bhagavad Gita 10:4-5. So Krishna says, intelligence, so these are all qualities that belong to living beings. Intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, non-violence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame, and infamy. All these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone. So, and Srila Prabhupada explains this. Birth should be understood to refer to the body. As far as the soul is concerned, there is neither birth nor death. Birth and death apply to one who's embodied in the material world. So, King Shalva, he's referring to Krishna as having been begot by Vasudeva, as though he has taken birth and taken into account of what we're beginning to understand of how it appeared he took birth, and Vasudeva's understanding of who that little child was, and taking into account that the term birth, even though it's a quality that belongs to a living being that's created by Krishna, still, Srila Prabhupada explains, it's something that refers to the body. And as far as the soul is concerned, there's neither birth nor death. So birth only applies to somebody who's embodied in the material world. Now, taking encouragement from Lord Krishna, giving one intelligence, because he says intelligence is a quality that he bestows upon a living being. So one can try to analyze something of the picture that's emerging. And from Shalva's perspective, Krishna has taken birth, meaning Shalva understands Krishna to be embodied in this material world. That's Shalva's understanding. And this is Vasudeva's understanding of Lord Krishna appearing as his child, and he's praying to Lord Krishna in his baby four-armed form. So here we're going to hear what Vasudeva understands. And this is Vasudeva speaking. One has to understand your appearance with great intelligence, because the material energy is also emanating from you. You are the original source of the material energy. Just as the sun is the source of sunshine, the sun cannot cover the sun globe, nor can the material energy, being an emanation from you, cover you. You appear to be in the three modes of material energy, but actually the three modes of material energy cannot cover you. So this is Vasudeva's understanding of Lord Krishna. And he says this is understood by the highly intellectual philosophers. So it's not a simple thing to understand. One has to truly apply intelligence, and there's a philosophical component to it. So notice Vasudeva's understanding. Although all material activities in this world are carried out under the modes of material nature, being emanations from the Supreme Lord, he is not subject to those modes. So that's the very important thing to note here, because King Shalva is truly seeing Lord Krishna as being embodied. And Vasudeva is explaining that the material energy emanates or comes from Lord Krishna, but it cannot cover him. So he's not subject to the modes of material nature. Now, Vasudeva has further insight into Lord Krishna's birth and the topic of a material body. And this is what Vasudeva says. So we're relying on Vasudeva's understanding of Lord Krishna because we're challenging King Shalva's view of Lord Krishna. So this is what Vasudeva says. We can understand your entrance and non-entrance from material examples. The total material energy remains intact even after being divided into 16 elements. The material body is nothing but the combination of the 5 gross elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Whenever there's a material body, it appears that such elements are newly created. But actually, the elements are always existing outside of the body. So, very interesting. Similarly, although you have appeared, referring to Krishna, as a child in the womb of Devaki, you are also existing outside. You are always in your abode, but still you can simultaneously expand yourself into millions of forms. So there's Vasudev speaking, and this is coming from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, where he's giving something of the understanding of how Krishna actually can expand himself into millions of forms. And even though if somebody like Shalva is looking at Lord Krishna as being embodied, that he's taken birth, the truth of the matter is that material elements, they're actually, even for a regular person, they're always existing. And so when you see a baby, you might think, oh, earth, water, fire, and air and ether has been newly created to form this form. But in actual fact, those elements are always existing. And I read something very interesting. I came across it in a lecture of Srila Prabhupada for some work I was doing recently, that when you see a child, persons always say, oh, you've really grown up. The truth of the matter is that actually the body they're given a new body at each age. So I always thought that was fascinating. Because, you think, oh, the same body is expanding and growing, but it's not. They're actually given a new body at the different ages. So very fascinating. That was Srila Prabhupada in one lecture. So it's to reinforce this idea that the material elements are always existing. Now, Krishna also describes himself in this way, that he's not subject to material energy. So this is how Krishna puts it. It's from Bhagavad Gita 7:12. He says, know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I'm independent. I'm not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. So again, and I'll read the Sanskrit for that since it's relevant to this discussion. Yechaiva sattvika bhava, rajasas tamasas chaye, mata eveti tanvidhi na tva aham teshu te mai. So Srila Prabhupada, he reiterates this point that Krishna is making, that he's not under the modes of material nature. You can't look at him and think of him as being embodied, as being, of those material elements under the control of material energy. He says that basically he's controlling material energy and the modes are with him, but he's not actually a part of it. So he's always independent. And Srila Prabhupada, he reiterates this point, and this is how he says it. So it's a very subtle point. In the Vedic injunctions, we find that the Supreme Soul, the root cause of everything, has to be searched out because nothing exists independently of the Supreme Soul. So he's reiterating that point that Krishna's making, that I am in one sense everything, but I'm independent. So one actually has to look for that Supreme Soul because he's the cause of everything. He has to be searched out. Now, the material manifestation is also a transformation of his potency. So when one sees a body, it's actually a transformation of the potency of Lord Krishna. So both matter, inert matter, and the living force, both of them are emanations from Lord Krishna. And only the foolish conclude that when the Supreme Lord appears, he accepts the conditions of matter. That's what Srila Prabhupada says. Only the foolish conclude that when the Supreme Lord appears, he accepts the conditions of matter. He doesn't. He's not subject to the regular, contact with material nature, and then persons acquire a way of being either in goodness, passion, or ignorance. He's not subjected to that. So if one was taken into account what King Shalva says, Srila Prabhupada's statement would actually one could apply the term foolish to King Shalva, because he's concluding that where Lord Krishna appearing, he's accepting the conditions of matter. He's seen him as embodied. He's saying, you were begotten by Vasudev. You're living for him, like there's an attachment connected to matter. Even if he appears to have accepted a material body, still he's not subjected to any material condition. It's very important to understand this. Krishna has therefore appeared and defeated all imperfect, and this is the point. The reason for his appearance, he's actually defeating all imperfect conclusions about his appearance and disappearance. So I'm going into detail, and I know it's very philosophical, but that's the subject matter for this particular verse, because it's the only, although there's the 3 verses, it's the only verse where Srila Vishwanath's commenting, and it's really focused on King Shalva seeing Lord Krishna as embodied. Now, Srila Jiva Goswami, he notes that Shalva wished to produce great lamentation within Krishna. That was his purpose. He wanted to make Krishna lament, because he's saying to him, I have your father, I'm going to kill him right in front of you. So that was his purpose. He wanted to produce lamentation within Krishna. And this is how he explained, Srila Jiva Goswami, Lord Krishna's relationship with Vasudev. And he uses these words. Sorry, it's how Shalva explains. He says, for whom you live. So he's implying that there's great attachment on the part of Lord Krishna, but it's a material attachment. And he's also, again, pointing to that sort of embodiment. You living because of Vasudev. You were begotten by Vasudev. So again, let's look more closely at the interrelationship between Krishna and his parents. So Lord Krishna in his baby four-armed form, he speaks to his parents and he explains their relationship. So he's just appeared and Lord Krishna explains the relationship to his parents. Listen to what he says. In the millennium of Swayambhuva Manu, my father Vasudev was living as one of the Prajapatis. His name at that time was Sutapa, and you were his wife named Prishni. So he's addressing his parents. He's just appeared in his baby form. And this is what he's saying to his parents, explaining the relationship. At that time, when Lord Brahma was desiring to increase the population, he requested you to generate offspring. You controlled your senses and performed severe austerities. By practicing the breathing exercise of the yoga system, both you and your husband could tolerate all the influences of the material laws. The rainy season, the onslaught of the wind, and the scorching heat of the sunshine. You also executed all religious principles. In this way, you were able to cleanse your heart. Then with a clear mind, steady mind, and controlled sex drive, you worshipped me, desiring some wonderful benediction from me. So imagine, this is Krishna explaining to his parents that they were looking for a benediction from him. When you were executing devotional service, he's addressing his parents, and always thinking of me within your heart, I was very much pleased with you. O sinless mother, your heart is therefore always pure. At that time, I also appeared before you in this form just to fulfill your desire. And I asked you to ask whatever you desire. At that time, you wished to have me born as your son. So Krishna is giving the history of previous lifetimes of his parents to his parents at the time of his appearance. And Srila Prabhupada explains it this way. To appear in the material world, the Lord selected his mother and father. namely Prishni and Sutapa. And Srila Prabhupada generalizes whenever the Lord comes as a human being, or it appears to be a human-like form, he must have a mother and father. So he selected Prishni and Sutapa to be his mother and father perpetually. So for 3 births, actually, or 3 times that he appeared. Lord Krishna speaks to Vasudeva and Devaki. At that time, my name was Prishni Garbha. So that's the first time he appeared as the son of Vasudeva and, at that time, known as Sutapa and his wife Prishni. And he was called Prishni Garbha. In the next millennium, you took birth as Aditi. And at that time, my form was like a dwarf. And for this reason, I was known as Vamanadev. So you can laugh. In fact, it's beginning to be very clear that King Shalva has no idea, no idea, seeing Lord Krishna simply as, an embodied entity who was born of a material father. And here you get some understanding of how extraordinary Lord Krishna is. As a baby, he's explaining his previous births, so to speak, or appearances, and those of his parents. I gave you the benediction that I would take birth as your son 3 times. For the 3rd time, I am born as Krishna from you, Devaki, and Vasudeva. I've appeared in this Vishnu form to convince you I'm the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. And you can see, just from what I read earlier on, Vasudeva understood. When he saw this beautiful child, beautifully decorated, dressed, he understood, oh, this is Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Krishna himself is saying to Vasudeva and Devaki as a baby in his baby form, I have appeared in this Vishnu form to convince you I am the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's why he appeared in that way. He's explaining to his parents why he looks how he looks. And he says, I could have appeared as an ordinary child, but in that way, you would not have believed that the Supreme Personality of Godhead had taken birth in your womb. So he's given a reason why he's appearing in the way he's appearing. And Srila Jiva Goswami, he says that Shalva was telling Lord Krishna that he, as a good son, should give up his life for his father. That's what Shalva was trying to imply to Lord Krishna. Give up your life. You come from your father, so be a good son, give up your life. And he tells Krishna that he's going to kill his father, Vasudeva, while Krishna watches him do so. So imagine the cruelty, even on a material level, that you're actually going to have the child watch as you kill the parent. And of course, Krishna's in a grown-up form now, so he's an adult, but this is what Shalva is actually saying to him. You watch, and I'm just watch right in front of you. I'm going to, and he actually takes his sword and he chops off Vasudeva's head. So, and this is what Shalva says, oh, fool, you do not know my power. So he's even bragging while he's doing it. Now, the following is from, again, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is how Srila Prabhupada puts it. The mystic juggler. So it was all a kind of mystic jugglery that Shalva was engaging in. Srila Prabhupada writing, this mystic juggler, Shalva, speaking in this way, meaning he was saying, this is your father who has begotten you and by whose mercy you are still living. Now just see how I kill your father. If you have any strength, try to save him. So Srila Jiva Goswami knows that Shalva's words have another meaning. And this is very interesting. This is how Srila Jiva Goswami says what Shalva's words, the other meaning they have. This is your father on account of whom you show your strength. While you watch this trick, I will kill because I am capable of doing so. So, Another meaning may be that the devotee, and this is Jiva Goswami about Shalva's words, so either Srila Jiva Goswami is explaining that either King Shalva must understand that what he's doing is a trick. He's actually saying, you can watch my trick, and I'll kill him because I'm able to do so. Or he's actually saying that a devotee can step over the head of any obstacle that somebody places before him. So this raises the question, if Srila Jiva Goswami is saying that Shalva is saying that actually he understands that, devotee can overcome any obstacle, then you can ask the question, does Shalva have some inkling as a spirit soul that Lord Krishna can stop the cycle of birth and death? And does he actually question the activities he's engaging in? You can ask that question, because if Srila Jiva Goswami is saying that Shalva, in his words, that's saying that he's going to kill Lord Krishna, he's understanding that actually a devotee, if saying it that way, can step over any obstacle. Does he have some understanding that there's the activity he's performing is a questionable activity? So we're going to pause for a minute and just look at this. Krishna himself sets the criterion that needs to be met to escape the cycle of birth and death. And this is the criterion that needs to be met to escape the cycle of birth and death. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in the material world and attains my eternal abode. O Arjuna. That's what he says in Bhagavad Gita 4:19. So it requires that somebody understands the truth of the Lord's appearance. So we've been hearing, so we're fortunate. We can try and understand it. At least we've heard the truth of how he appears. So this is what breaks the cycle of birth and death. Just the fact that we've been hearing how Krishna appears, that we're trying to understand it. And Srila Prabhupada notes that this kind of liberation from the cycle of birth and death or from material bondage is not at all easy. So even though we're hearing, I had some difficulty even explaining philosophically about material energy and how it's within, and Krishna's not subjected to it, but it's necessary to try and understand, because this is what frees one from material bondage. And one has to understand that, and here it is, the one supreme personality of Godhead is eternally engaged in many transcendental forms. Because that's what he was explaining to his parents. He's got many transcendental forms. And this is confirmed by Lord Krishna's statement in Bhagavad Gita 4:9. This one where the criterion is there that we have to meet. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in the material world. He attains my eternal abode. So just hearing and trying to understand is actually freeing one from material bondage. It's very extraordinary. So one has to accept this truth on the strength of the authority of the Vedas and by what Lord Krishna is saying. And Srila Prabhupada writes that so we're looking at how was Shalva, did he actually have some comprehension? Because Srila Jiva Goswami said that, he said a devotee can overcome any obstacle. So how did Shalva actually respond? And here you read, Srila Prabhupada puts it, this was Shalva's response. And he writes, the mystic juggler Shalva, speaking in this way before Lord Krishna, immediately cut off the head of the false Vasudev. Then without hesitation, he took away the dead body and got into his airplane. So you can see it doesn't indicate any kind of proper comprehension. He just went through the motions, got onto his airplane like it was all, done. so, so this is as far as I was able to understand these particular verses. If there's something that you wish to add to expand the discussion, or some query or something that wasn't clear, please feel free.
What you're thinking, yesterday I was giving a class to a group of yoga people who are training to be yoga teachers, and the the conception or the way of disregarding Krishna's pastimes and Krishna's human form is, as Krishna put it in the Bhagavad Gita, it's not a very simple thing to understand. It actually is extremely difficult. And he says that out of many thousands of people in the world, hardly one can endeavor for understanding the absolute truth. And even of those who understand the absolute truth, hardly one knows him in truth. And he explains that fools deride him when he comes in his human form because they don't understand that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this understanding is not very simple.
Yeah.
And even among even among Vaishnavas, also the understanding of Krishna as the Supreme Source, the Swayam Bhagavan, is not as simple. So what to speak of devotees? Sorry, of demons. Sorry, what to speak of demons? So it was one of the students. He just was. I mean, what he was talking was so convoluted that it didn't just didn't make any sense at all when you listen. It was just a lot of word jugglery. So I was thinking of my, what is it? The magic jugglery of Shalva. And in this case, these impersonal conceptions are just word jugglery that is just meant to create an illusion of some knowledge or something. But in reality, it amounts to nothing. It's confusing. It doesn't make it really. One of the beautiful things that we receive is that, because you're listening consistently to Krishna's pastime and you're listening consistently to the understandings and presentation of the Vaishnava Acharyas, self-realized souls, then you get a perspective that is so clear that you're able, the illusion doesn't, or the jugglery doesn't get you. You just see it for what it is. It's just like mumbo jumbo. It doesn't make sense. And so it's quite something that even after presented in such a way that you defeat, or you actually know, that doesn't amount to much. Here's, the perspective. As per the Bhagavad Gita, and this is what Krishna is saying. This is what, the Vedas are presenting, and it's very different to that mumbo jumbo. Still, it doesn't penetrate. So in reality, you don't have to waste so much time trying to convince demons or not that this guy was a demon.
No,
You know, he was a very sweet person, but it's a foolish position. He's a victim of demoniac type of deride of Krishna by impersonalism, Mayavadis. So it's quite something.
thank you very much for giving a practical scenario where you got exposed to somebody who is practicing yoga, somebody training to be a yoga teacher, and simply not being able to grasp something of the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna's pastimes, activities. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the term used here was that somebody's actually foolish. But, and the reason for the foolishness is because one is caught in the material energy. So, and the only way to go past that material energy is to be trying to understand the transcendental nature of the Lord's pastimes and activities. So the person has been exposed, but if the person's not trying to understand and is sticking to their own impersonless, confused ideas, then they remain stuck in the material energy.
One may think like, why, because he's an intelligent person, he's, thoughtful, but then how is that possible? And the reason, Krishna presented is just, there's these qualities, especially this Ichadvesha, that is envy of Krishna, and there's certain, we all conditioned souls have that, but when you allow that to, be, so there's envy and there's desire, and there's also fears of relationships, all these type of things that you just don't, you want to, the idea of being supreme yourself, of being one with the supreme, or not being accountable to a higher, then it becomes very appealing.
Yes, thank you for expanding. Thank you indeed. Yeah, to really actually paint the picture of the what it means to be bound to the material energy. It's very intense.
Yeah, a couple things, Mother. I think the Subal Prabhu has mentioned that thing. Two things about the living entity. One is, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Cheta Darpana Marjanam, because our consciousness is covered with so much dust, so it's very difficult to clean it out without the mercy of the devotees. So in this case, normally we need to give them prasadam and then chanting in front of them and offer some garlands and certain things like that. It's like dead batteries, and you jump the batteries in the car, then the car will start because the battery is already dead. Similarly, these conditioned souls are like that unless the devotees touch them and then bless them and then give some guidance and prasadam and chanting. It's very difficult for them to come out because it's covered. The consciousness is completely covered with millions of birth of all this nonsense work. So it's very difficult. The other questions I had is that you mentioned that Sutapa and Krishna and then Kashyap and Aditi and then Devaki and Vasudeva. So in the more Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's father mother is the same or different? Is it mentioned anything or anybody else talk about that?
This particular part that I'm reading is coming from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it was specifically the moment of Krishna addressing Vasudeva and Devaki to explain to them who they were in previous times and how this was the third of his births in terms of the benediction he was granting to them. So that was the context. And why I specifically looked at that had to do with the fact that Shalva was referencing Lord Krishna's birth, so to speak, from Vasudev. So in that context, there was no mention of the parents in relation to a different incarnation of Lord Krishna, namely Lord Chaitanya. So I don't know. I don't have it at my fingertips. The response to your question, maybe Subal has. No, the.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's parents were Nanda and Yashoda.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your class, Mantaji. I was just thinking how it seems to, in my mindset, from what I've read, and I forget the name of the book, but it's about Vaishnavism, about Vaishnavism, and they made a point about Brahmamadva Gaudiya, and they would explain that the word Gaudiya means like molasses or honey-like, describing Srimati Radharani. And I had an experience yesterday with one devotee, and he was asking about Narayana Chaitanya and everything, and his concern, his just the way he cared about him was very touched my heart. You know, the way that he felt about Narayana Chaitanya, but the way that his personality and his just the way he was just reminded me of the Gaudiya, the sweetness and the disposition, or it's basically, I'm thinking that what devotees can bring to the table that's going to break the ice. It's like the prasadam in the books, in that mood of Gaudiya, the sweetness and the molasses, the sweetness of Srimati Radharani. I think that's the thing that changes the heart, because it just being around him in that one moment when he was speaking, it touched my heart. His heart touched my heart. So, because Krishna is, to give Krishna to someone, I think it's seeming to me like it's more important to give Srimati Radharani to the people, her what she's bringing to the table, which is the mother energy to the people. No,
There was a comment that to reach someone, because it is difficult to give Krishna, so to speak, to somebody in the public. The explanation was that because Vaishnava Sevananda experienced his heart getting touched just by being exposed to a devotee who had a certain sweetness because he cared for another devotee, then Vaishnava Sevananda was thinking that maybe that sweetness is coming from Srimati Radharani, and that's actually what one is giving to others, a sweetness. So, well, the thing that touches any human being, and as was explained, it is terribly difficult to touch another conditioned being, um, is having a very clean heart. And that's something that was emerging from just looking at this subject matter of trying to understand something of Krishna's transcendental appearance. There's a cleansing of the heart that has to happen through hearing about Lord Krishna and his activities and pastimes. And it's that cleansing of the heart that one, when one is presenting or saying something to a conditioned being, the fact that one's heart has been cleansed is something that causes a conditioned soul to pause because they see there's a different quality in the person, something that is outside of their realm of experience. So it's the cleansed heart that somehow touches somebody else, but it depends on the receptivity of the person too. I mean, in your case, you were highly receptive. So the receptivity, I mean, in the example that was given by Subal, there was not such receptivity. The person still continued speaking some very confused ideas of an impersonal nature, although he's attending for a second time a training course of understanding the Bhagavad Gita, because he's training to be a yoga teacher, and as part of his curriculum that he has to attend Bhagavad Gita classes that Subal's giving. But still, he stayed with his ideas. But it requires the genuine effort and receptivity on the part of the receiver. But the cleansed heart is the important component, and that comes from trying to understand Krishna's pastime. So I don't know if it's specifically that you're bringing a mood of sweetness. I think it's more just having a heart that's been cleansed from hearing about the pastimes of Lord Krishna. At least that's in line with what Lord Krishna is saying, that it's only through the understanding of the transcendental nature of his appearance and activities that one starts to get free from the bondage of material nature. So that freedom is the cleansing of the heart. Yeah. Thank you so very, very much for your very, very kind contributions to the class. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.